Okay, so good evening, everyone. I am Lorraine Nowlin, the facilitator of the Black Women's Caucus of the U.S. chapter of Women's Declaration International. I'd like to introduce you to an amazing woman doing amazing work, Umi Rey. She is a mother and birth worker with a passion for Black women's maternal health and wellness. Umi Rey, thank you again so much for being here. Can you tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm a mom of three. I'm a home educator. I'm a student of herbalism. I've been a birth nerd for the past 11 years. And in September of 2023, I finally became a trained doula.
Mhm.
Prior to just staying at home with my children and being a steward of my home, I have a background in the nonprofit sector. I
Mhm.
was in AmeriCorps for 3 terms, and that's like Peace Corps, but in America. And so I
Mhm.
was stationed in Denver, right outside of St. Louis, and Wilmington, Delaware.
Mhm.
And so I have an extensive background in like community development and organizing, and also youth development, working particularly with at-risk youth.
Mhm.
So all of that to say, before we move on to the next question,
Mhm.
um, I joined AmeriCorps in 2009, and I was stationed in Denver, Colorado. And
Mhm.
so that is where I was exposed to, I guess, very liberal and progressive politics. And
Mhm.
I really felt like I found my tribe. I was like, this is my work. I was the social justice warrior before it
Mhm.
became a bad thing. So
Wow.
wokeism has been a part of my life for a very, very long time. Of course, living in Denver, Colorado, I was in like the epicenter of wokeness. So
Mhm.
I say that because I think a lot of people like to assume that gender critical Black women are Christian and like super
Mhm.
conservative. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, I've been there, done that. So
Right. Well, again, as a mother myself, thank you so much for the work that you are doing on behalf of Black expectant moms.
yes, you're
Um,
welcome.
okay. Gender identity ideology is spreading like wildfire in all facets of society. What led to your awareness of this damaging issue?
Okay. So my story starts in part of my story starts in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had my son in 2014,
Mm-hmm.
and within days, severe postpartum depression came over me, like just a blanket of deep sadness.
Wow.
Um, and so I tried everything for 4 years. I changed my diet. I became raw vegan. I got deep into new age spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I went deeper into woke politics. I felt like I tried everything and everything. I did the tarot cards, I did the Reiki healing, all the crystals, the green juice fast, and nothing was taken away
Mm.
this postpartum depression. And I think people have this misconception that postpartum depression just goes away magically after 2 years,
Yeah.
and it doesn't. And so I was at my lowest point in 2018, in the summer of 2018. I was
Mm.
weary, I was tired, and I wanted to give up.
Wow.
And so the only thing that saved me, and I hesitate in saying this because I know this isn't everyone's experience, but really finding out I was pregnant with my daughter did save
Mm.
me.
Wow.
And immediate, so this is a really crazy story because the day I found out I was pregnant on August 18th of 2018 in the morning, and I said, enough is enough. I'm done with new age spirituality. I'm done with constantly trying to find an answer to
Mhm.
my depression. I need professional help.
Right.
So I found an African centered therapist, and she happened to be 5 minutes away from where I lived. And I called her that night and I told her everything I was going through. And she was just like, this is your lucky day. Someone just canceled. Can you get here
Mm.
within 10 minutes? And I was like, yes. After I got off the phone with her, I just dropped to my knees.
Wow.
And I hadn't really prayed those whole 4 years. Everything I was doing, I never prayed.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about like manifesting and all of that kind of stuff. I never prayed. I dropped to my knees and I prayed, and I just thank God. Now, this is not a story of me going from New Age to Christianity. I don't want you to think it's one of those stories, but I did. I dropped to my knees and I prayed and I cried, and I
Mm-hmm.
went and saw this African centered therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and she gave me kind of a new perspective on my mental health. And she's like, as a Black woman, we don't have the support, right? Like our moms aren't walking us through postpartum. And we don't have the help. We don't have the village anymore. And so she gave me a place to place my depression because I no longer felt shame and guilt. I realized that there were bigger things at play.
Wow.
And so I realized that like how racism and even sexism and misogyny could play a part in your mental health. Okay, so all of that, I dug deeper into Black radical feminist work around that time. She kind of inspired me, you know. So of course I'm reading bell hooks. I used to love reading poetry of Nikki Giovanni's while I was pregnant. So I got into all of that. So I'm a millennial. So now I'm looking for Black radical feminists online. So I'm finding Black radical feminists online. And one of the first videos I found was a woman who did like a parody rap on hoteps. And you know what hoteps are.
Yes, yes.
Black men from the conscious community.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I love this. I love that she's clapping back at Black men. I also started to realize that more and more of these women were identifying as queer, identifying as femme. And I was all for it. I was like, yes, let's get free. This is the work, the liberation work. Fine. And I'm pregnant, mind you, I'm pregnant. So I'm having my daughter at the birth center. It's in a white, very white, liberal and upper class community. And they were heavy on the virtue signaling. So they were calling, of course, they were calling us birthing people, Black Lives Matter stickers everywhere. And it almost made me sick to my stomach when I was pregnant, because I'm like, y'all really don't care. Even though I was receiving the care there, I could feel like y'all really don't care about Black women, you know? So that left a bad taste in my mouth. And just hearing myself referred to as a birthing person, I was like, it kind of sounds better coming from Black women. I don't know why this like white middle class white woman is calling me a birthing person. So it started to get weird. And so this is what's really interesting. And I just wish more Black women would talk about this, because I almost feel like I was in the Twilight Zone.
Wow.
So the thing with Black radical feminists in 2018 and prior to that, they were calling out Black men for being misogynistic and homophobic and engaging in revisionist history. So Black men were trying to tell us like we should all be practicing polyamory, yet they don't have the tradition and culture around polyamory to make it work.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were talking about Black men gaslighting us, right? All of these things. And then those same women, some of those same women today are doing the same exact thing to Black women. And I'm like, wait, did we forget that we were calling out Black men for doing this?
Right.
I don't understand the revisionist history. Like we're saying that there's like all of these different genders that came out of Africa. Now we're practicing polyamory and we're not doing it in a responsible way. Gaslighting Black women, saying that Black women are the problem, you know, blaming Black women. So that's been weird to see in 2024, but still in 2018, that happened. 2019, gender ideology, like I still thought it was a way for Black women to get free. I read an article a Black woman wrote about realizing that she was non-binary, and I was like, yes, girl, like this is it.
Yeah.
So I didn't start to wake up until COVID, like a lot of people. So during COVID, I experienced 2 pregnancies, but I lost both babies in my second trimester. So I had 2 back-to-back second trimester miscarriages. And I think there's something about deep trauma like that it forces you to search for truth.
Right.
And like spirituality in a way, because it's like I have no choice.
Wow.
If I don't find more meaning in my life, then I know that I'm not going to think that life is worth living.
Wow.
And so yeah, I started to, as a way to cope and a way to survive, I just started searching for truth in my life. Searching for truth. And just by the time, so my son, I got pregnant with my youngest in 2021. So I had a miscarriage in 2021, and 6 months later, I got pregnant with my son.
Yes.
And so now I'm going into this pregnancy and I've shed everything, like anything that seemed like a lie, all the ideologies that never served me. Like I just went into that pregnancy like a baby. Like I just wanted to learn the truth about things.
Right.
And I just couldn't find it in the Black birth work spaces. Because, you know, when you're pregnant, especially nowadays, you're looking for Black birth workers.
Yes.
You're like, where the Black birth workers at? What herbs y'all use? Like, what's up? And it was just like too political. They just wanted to talk about how we're dying and racism. And I'm like, yeah, like that's true, but we need to have solutions.
Exactly.
So I gravitated more to the white women in the home birth community and the free birth community, because they were talking about herbalism. They were talking really about getting free, really about desisting from allopathic medicine. Like they were speaking to me. And then that's when I found out that these women also happen to be gender critical.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And the free birth community is gender critical. It clicked for me. Wow. Later on, I found Whose Body Is It?
Yes, Isabella.
Isabella.
Yes.
I was like, yes, okay. And everything just started to click for me. And I was just like, wow, I thought I was so woke and I was asleep. And I want to say one more thing. At the height of my wokeism, because everybody wants to talk about the work of decolonization.
Right.
And this isn't like when I'm saying it, this isn't coming from an arrogant place. It's truth. At the height of my wokeism, I lived on a bamboo farm. I was raw vegan. My son was raw vegan. We didn't watch TV. We grew some of our own food. The only interactions I had with white people was in Whole Foods, the cashier.
Right.
My son was homeschooled, so we didn't send him to school. My partner's an entrepreneur, so he wasn't going to work for anybody.
Right.
And so at this time, I felt like I was top tier woke. You know, and internally, like, yes, I was arrogant at that time. I'm like, there is no Black people who are more woke than me. You won't find one. You won't find one. And so when people talk about the work of decolonization, I'm like, how? Who, what, when, where, how? Who do you? Yeah.
Well, first, thank you. Actually, I'm so sorry to hear about your losses.
Yeah.
You know, sorry about that. And you know, great, you have beautiful children.
Yeah.
Okay, so have you ever worked with expected moms that believe they are men? You know, the world calls them trans men. And what specific health concerns do you know might arise with working with that population?
So I never worked with anyone who identify as a trans man. The thing with doulas is you're not there to, of course, give medical advice. You're just there to support, emotional support, and educate. But if you just look at a trans man, a medicalized trans man, they're dissociated from the female body, which means that they'll probably experience gender dysphoria throughout their pregnancy. And so this is someone who is going through a severe mental health crisis because of their body during pregnancy. And so I would just say that that's a huge risk factor. We don't know. We don't have the studies to say what testosterone actually does to a pregnant woman's body and the fetus, but I'm sure it's not good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And then we probably a medicalized trans man probably doesn't have breast. And so what happens when that baby is born?
Won't get the
breast. We know how beneficial breast milk is for trans men. So in the media, trans men are celebrated for becoming pregnant. And honestly, it's a shame that the only time trans men get any kind of recognition is when they're pregnant. You know, where are the trans men CEOs? We see a lot of trans women CEOs. Where are the trans men CEOs? Right.
Good point. Good point.
Where are the trans men who are stellar athletes? So we center trans men who are doing the most feminine thing you can do.
Exactly. And that's the strange thing about it. It's like breasts can trigger dysphoria, but not pregnancy. Like I just don't get it. I just don't get it. What do you feel that gender identity ideology poses a risk to Black maternal health in general? Like we just mentioned, women that believe they're men, but what about to Black mothers in general? Do you think it poses a risk?
Yeah, I mean, yes, definitely. So one, when you use gender neutral language, it does erase mothers and women, and they try to say they don't erase mothers and women, but it does. And I give the analogy, if a trans man wants to be called he and wants to be called a birthing person, and if you don't call him a he and a birthing person, this trans identified female will let you know you're erasing my identity and you're causing harm and violence to me by not recognizing me. So what happens when you don't use the words women and mother?
Good point. Point.
Are we not erased? Do we not face harm?
See, like, I
And
guess it doesn't
violence?
matter if we're race.
Right. And so you have to start playing the same game. If this is the
Wow.
game you want to play, well, we have to play the game that's based in reality.
Reality. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Wow.
So, and I want to add two more
Sure.
risks.
Sure.
So LGBT, there's this thing about we need to center um trans people, whatever it is, whether it's in birth work, we center trans identified people because they're most at risk. Being trans does not make you the most at risk as a Black woman. Being a Black
Right.
woman makes you most at risk.
Mm-hmm.
Black women face high rates of domestic violence,
Yep.
sexual assault, sex trafficking, and poverty.
Yes.
That's what's most at risk. So when we center identities, we decenter reality. So that's another risk.
Yep. Got a clap on that one. So true.
And the third risk is when we use phrases like trans men are men, we open it up for them to say phrases that trans women can breastfeed. Any trans woman that's breastfeed is exploiting and abusing a child.
Yes.
A woman's breast milk is made for that baby, specifically
Yes.
for that baby. You are erasing the physiological bond between
Right.
a mother and her child. That breast milk is designed custom for
Yes.
that child.
Exactly.
No man has the right to breastfeed an infant. We are watching sexual abuse happen right before our eyes when we
Absolutely.
look at any picture. So when it's gender ideology poses a threat to Black mothers, because a lot of Black women go around and say, well, Black trans men can have babies, Black trans men can get pregnant. Well, guess what you're opening the door to? And this is why it's so important to gatekeep.
Yes. Yes. Gatekeep. Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing out that point. Okay. It seems that trans ideologues deliberately attach themselves to groups without power, in this case, Black women, and we know that Black women lack power. Have you noticed the same? And are you also noticing the same type of force teaming among your white counterparts? Meaning, have you ever heard anyone say white birthing body?
No, not at all.
uh,
Black
Interesting.
women, yes. Black women continue to be dehumanized in the birth work space,
Right.
and we do it to ourselves. I would say the most harmful force teaming that I see, it seems like it doesn't have anything to do with the birth work world, but I pay attention more to what's going on in the Black community, and the force teaming that's happening is Black women and Black trans identified males all being a part of womanhood, right? And the main reason why they're telling us that trans identified males are actually women is because of our shared oppression. So essentially, you are asking Black women to build solidarity with trans women through a trauma bond. And if we look at the relationship between Black women and Black males, whether you're cisgender, transgender, queer, or straight, Black women have a history of trauma bonding with Black males.
Yes. Yes.
And so this is another way to get us to trauma bond with Black males and not hold them accountable for their healing.
Right. And in turn, we get erased.
And then we get erased. And it's the same thing that happened to us in the 60s and 70s in the Black liberation movement.
Right.
When Black men said, no, it's not your time right now.
It's not. I mean, it's almost like when we say Blackness, we really mean men, but, Black women need, our issues need to be addressed and solutions need to come about.
Yes.
One light thing to the audience, we're not necessarily saying that we should say white birthing bodies, but we just have to look at the difference of who's being dehumanized and who's being disrespected.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. Do you have any support among your colleagues?
I have some support privately. Um, I think the thing about Black birth work is that so there are a lot of Black birth workers who are doing great work. I'm not going to take that from them.
Right.
I think the Black birth workers who are really doing the work and their head is down, they don't want any smoke. They just want to get the job done.
Right.
They realize that there's a Black maternal health crisis and I need to focus on this. I don't have time. I have to use my position because I am fortunate to be a stay-at-home mom, because if I can't do birth work in my community, I can still survive, right? Like,
right.
My main work right now is being a mother and is being at home with my children. And I think that's the most radical Black feminist thing that I can do right now.
Yes.
So you can't take that away from me.
Right.
So I will say there are Black women whose heads are down and they're just doing the work. There
Mm-hmm.
also are a lot of Black women who are birth workers who do engage in gender ideology. Here's the thing. Black women look at gender ideology as a form of resistance. So they're looking at it as resisting white supremacy, where white women look at it more of rebelling against the patriarchy, right? So if you are looking at this as this is a form of resistance, this is how I'm going to get free. If someone tells you that, no, babe, like this isn't the way, this isn't liberation for you, it's harder for you to give that up.
Right.
Because we deeply need our freedom. Like we deeply need our liberation. This isn't about rebellion. It's two different things. Resistance and rebellion are two different things.
Yes.
And so I think that because Black women look at this as life or death, this is the way to get free. It's just hard for them to get untangled from gender ideology because they almost feel like they're going from the field Negro to the house Negro.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing out that important point. Speaking of Black women that might be afraid to speak out, what might be some of the ramifications of speaking out? And have you ever, experienced anything yourself for speaking out?
So I was part of a Black birth work organization and I had to cut ties with them before I was canceled. But it was almost like when I heard a lot of, we're here to disrupt and we're here to deconstruct. And I came in like, have you not seen the Black community? There's enough disruption and deconstruction in our community. We need to reconstruct. We need to build. I'm not here to disrupt the system. I'm here to create new systems.
Yes.
So I never aligned with that. I never aligned with deconstructing, disrupting. Nope, I'm here to work in harmony. And so the way I come into a room and the way I sit is like, yes, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Yes, I'm a home educator. Yes, I'm a student of herbalism. All of this is fine. Everybody would love me if I said all of these things. But then in front of it, I said, and I'm queer and I'm femme. Then that validates what I'm doing.
Right.
Because if I say that I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm a home educator and I do this, it's not it doesn't align with Black radical feminism enough.
Right.
And so in terms of what are the ramifications? I already saw the ramifications because I would see how the energy would change when I wouldn't say the things that they wanted me to say.
Right. Wow. That's, I've noticed that myself. Speaking of ramifications, is there a network of support either locally or nationally for birth workers that do embrace the reality of biological sex?
There's not a network of support. I mean, you will find Black birth workers who don't who don't adhere to gender ideology. But no, there's no network of support. I want to start a network of support.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, there's Mary Lou Singleton. She's a midwife. There's a woman, Millie Hill. There's some organizations in the UK who I closely follow. But other than that, no.
Wow. Well, I hope you do move forward with, a network of support because it's so needed. It's just a shame that, women are just living in fear for speaking of the truth. To speak the truth. Is there anything else you plan to do moving forward?
Yeah, so Reclaiming Our Rights is that's the social media handle that I started. And I really want to make something big out of this because I told you my background, in liberal progressive politics. And I feel like I'm such a great person to bridge the gap because I really still stay connected with Black radical feminism as much as I can. I still follow everybody. So all of that to say is I started Reclaiming Our Rights, RITES, because we know that Black women have lost the tradition of rites of passage. And rites of passage is embodiment work. And Black women are totally disembodied and disassociated. And once you make space in your body and you can live in your body, gender ideology has no place.
Wow.
It has no place. So I'm here to educate Black women on what our cultural rites of passage were and what it looks like now through the perspective and the lens of Black radical feminism.
Well, thank you very much for that. And again, thank you very much for the work that you are doing on behalf of Black expectant moms, Black mothers, and Black women in general.
Yes.
To our audience, if you are so inclined, you may click on the link to read and sign our declaration. And also you will find a link to Umi Rey's Instagram page where you can find out more about her amazing work. Thank you very much, Umi Rey, and it was just a wonderful interview. Again, thank you for the knowledge on free birthers. I never would have thought.
Yes.
Oh my God, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. People remember that. Okay. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.